So quick disclaimer again that we are recording this call and we will place our recording on our YouTube channel. If you don't want to be recorded, you may want to drop off now. Also, this call is joined by our Microsoft team members as well as members from our customers and partners. Okay, so with that, happy Friday. Thank you for joining. And today we have a very exciting topic, which is the private link support for uh, NSG and UDR. Okay, so quickly, um, um, I'm sure if you're everybody is aware of what private link and private endpoint is. Private link is one of Microsoft network fiber level service that allows you to access first party services like storage, databases, web apps, or third party services over a private endpoint. So instead of going over a public FQDN or public internet or public IP, you go over a private endpoint. Okay. These private endpoint you can create through the UI, through CLI. They are dropped into the VNet where you want to access it. It takes a address from that particular subnet where you drop it. Okay. So there was, um, I mean, this feature is very well received. A number of customers are using it, but at the same time, there was a lot of ask about having it support NSG as well as UDR because these private endpoints they did not play by the same rule as the rest of IP addresses. So, for example, if you have an NSG on a subnet and you have you know have VMs running and you have a private endpoint there, all of these network addresses will kind of follow the NSG rules except private endpoint. So that was this thing was there that that feature was kind of missing, I should say. But with this public preview, that feature is now there. Okay, so what we're gonna see, we're gonna take a couple of minutes to take a look at. Oh, sorry, going in the other direction. I hope everybody's aware of network security group. They are network ACLing. They allow you to basically allow or block traffic to one or more IP addresses. Okay. By the way, any questions so far? Okay. So um, let's move on. The next thing is UDR. UDR allows you to override or create new route, custom defined route, in addition to what Azure has. So Azure has some default routes. It allows you to create user defined routes. And basically, it is very helpful when you have a firewall and you want all the traffic to go through the firewall before it goes out, things like that. So route all the traffic from one or more subnets to a firewall subnet where that traffic is kind of filtered and then it goes out. So that's very helpful. And that's another thing with private endpoints. They did not follow that rule as well, the UDR rule. So, for example, if you have kind of using this UDR to route traffic to a different subnet or from one to the other, traffic towards the private IP will still go there. So it will not follow the rule. With this public preview, that feature is now available. So now they are going to be abiding by the same rule as the rest of the IP addresses, the rest of the services. So with that, first of all, you have to register that feature. I mean, if you want to take advantage of it, as I said, it's in public preview. Run this command. I had the CLI version. I was lazy not to put the PowerShell, but there is a PowerShell version. There is a link in the end in the resources where you click on it. It will show you what different things you can do, PowerShell or CLI. Okay, first of all, you do that. Then you check for the feature list. It may take up to 15 minutes to have this feature enabled. So you have to try it out. And this is the third thing. You have to enable, okay, this is like a reverse no, which is yes. It's kind of, so you have to enable private endpoint policy. The flag is disabled, so you have to set that flag to false. Okay, so this is kind of very important to note. And I have put this important note here so you don't end up like me throwing things at the PC and kind of being kind of frustrated. If you are creating a private endpoint from portal, just keep in mind, if you are creating a private endpoint from portal and you drop it in a subnet where you have this policy enabled, once you create that private endpoint, that policy will be disabled again. So you may be thinking, oh, I created a new private endpoint, everything is set up, and suddenly it's not working anymore. Please check this policy, and make sure that that policy is set up, is set to true. So basically this flag is set to false, which will enable this policy to true. Okay. So just make sure you do that. That's why I put it in red, just to make sure. So this is our scenario. We have two subnets. One is a PE subnet, which has a VM, a few PEs. I have put an NSG on top of it, and then I'm going to try to access it from other VM, and we will play around with the network security group rules. Okay, and then we have a UDR scenario where we'll see how applying this policy disables the route going to the private IP. If you don't have that policy, that route will be enabled. Okay. Any question before we jump into the demo?
There's a question from the chat if you want me to read it to you.
Yeah, please.
So
Thank
it's,
you.
yeah, sure. Private endpoints can be pretty expensive when there's a lot of traffic. Is there any relief to the pricing plan?
Man, I don't. That's way above my pay grade. So, yeah, sorry, I don't have an answer for this. Yeah, that's a good question. But I don't have an answer. I'm sorry, man. If you
Hey,
ask about,
no worries, no worries. This is Ludwig speaking. I was on a project where we use private endpoints, and
uh,
we made the assumption that that's the exact same as service endpoints price wise, but it turned out that it was like factor 10 more, and that was a big surprise to pretty much all of us. So just I haven't looked into this. Was about a year ago. Not sure if it's still the same. But I was just curious. Maybe someone else had encountered that.
yeah, I have some of the customer who are extensively using it. But still, man, the cost of other services like compute is still the big kahuna. In their case. Um,
Agree. It was like maybe 20%. It's just we had the assumption, well, like you just mentioned, compute is the main. We got to be careful there. And suddenly, this popped up, and it was with Synapse where we had naturally a lot of data volume. So no worries. Just continue.
thank you. Thank you. So basically, as I said, I just want to show you this demo thing. This is the VM that I am on, 10.2.04, and then this is a subnet where I have an NSG. And let me show you this NSG. And just keep in mind, for private endpoint, you only have to worry about inbound traffic because private endpoint cannot initiate traffic. You can send traffic to it, but it cannot initiate traffic. So you're only worried about inbound rules. So that's the NSG, as you can see, handle P NSG that I have. And what I'm doing is I'm saying block all VNet traffic. That's why there's a big exclamation mark before it. It's saying I'm blocking all traffic inside the VNet. Okay. So let's see how it is working. So first of all, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to try to go to the VM that is running. There's a VM at, and I'm just try to do TCP ping. It's a Linux VM, so I should be able to do SSH. Of course not, because all traffic is blocked. Then we have a um, private endpoint. It's a private endpoint to a storage account. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do that. Let's see. As you can see, it is, I mean, I am getting traffic from that private endpoint. So this is kind of not good because, uh, you know, it's, as you can see, the NSG rules are not able to block the traffic. Why? Because I have not yet set this policy flag. You know, this policy flag that I'm talking about is not yet set. So I'm going to go in there into this and I'm going to show it to you what is the value of this flag. As you can see, it is still disabled. So what I'm going to do, I have a simple command here and I am going to run it and enable this flag. So we go in here and we paste it. As you can see, this is a double false, which is true. So I'm kind of disabling the disablement of the flag. It will take a second, but now this flag is enabled. So now NSG should be, sorry, private IP should follow the policy of the NSG. Okay. So let's see what happens. Let's go back to our test VM and let's try to ping that storage account again. A second. Give me a second. That's not good. It should not work. Second. Let's see. Let's go in here and let's double check it. It sometimes takes a minute to get into effect. So this is this is the blob PE1. So let's double check our NSG. As you can see, we have the NSG set up. It is denying all inbound traffic, and that's the only private endpoint. So let's go in here and let's try one more time. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let's give it 1 second. Let me just drop it and recreate it. Okay. So let's quickly go in here. And what we're going to do is we are going to delete this particular private endpoint and then recreate it. How about that? Okay, so let's, while it is doing that, I have another storage account and I'm gonna create a private endpoint to that storage account. So let's go in here and containers, networking, and we are creating another private endpoint. Let's quickly go in, East US 2, we call it PE. Let's quickly do that. Okay, it's blob configuration. It's gonna be in this, it's gonna be in PE subnet and okay, so we are creating this. It will take a minute to create. While it is creating it, I wanna show you the UDR piece. So since we have the policy enabled, so let's go into the UDR piece quickly. So now we are going to go to the virtual machine, which is this UDR VM. So what I'm doing is I am routing traffic from kind of which is going to the subnet where private endpoint is. I'm routing all traffic to null, and there is a UDR set up. And let me show you that UDR as well. Give me 1 second so you can see what that UDR is. It's basically throwing all traffic to, uh, sorry, wrong window, user defined route table. Okay, so here is the route table that we are talking about. It's basically taking all the traffic that is going to 10.2.1.0.4 to nowhere. Okay, so that's what it is doing. Um, okay, so let's do that. Okay, in the meantime, so let me just show you this traffic one time. What we are going to do is let's go to the effective routes. Okay, as you can see, this route is active. You see, because the reason is why this route is active, because we just deployed a private endpoint and that set those policies to true. So if we run this command again, you will see those policies are again disabled. So what we're going to do, we're going to enable those policies. Okay. So now we have enabled those policies. And once we come back after a few minutes, this route should be turned back to inactive. Okay. So this policy is set now. So let's go back to our private endpoint. Let's see what is the IP address of this private endpoint. 10.2.1.4. Okay. So now, since we have enabled those policy, we should not be able to access this private endpoint. Okay. And I think my mistake, I was not accessing the right endpoint. So I'm just doing. So now we have 10.2.4. Let's do that. We can't access it. It says it's going to say in a second that, TCP ping timeout because at the moment, there is no access to this particular endpoint. And what we can do is, let's go to this storage account that we have created. Go back to overview. This is the storage account. It has a container, other files, and I'm going to copy this URL. And just to prove out the point, I'm going to do a curl to this. And by the way, this is a public blob. As you can see, it's timing out. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a rule to allow the traffic to this endpoint. Okay. So let's see how that rule works. Once again, let's go in here and open another portal instance. Okay, we have our NSG inbound security rule. I'm going to add this rule, and this is basically allowing service tag, which is virtual network. Destination is 10 dot, oh, sorry, IP address 10.2.1.4, and we are saying allow HTTPS traffic and allow, and just keep in mind, you have a block rule at 1,000. This rule has to be less than that. Okay. Otherwise, it will not work. I mean, this is simple. That's how NSG works. So, okay. So what we are saying is allow HTTPS to be. That's our rule name. We're going to add that rule. It will take a few seconds for it to get in effect. and then we can test it out if that rule is working. So now what we are saying is all traffic is blocked except the traffic to that private endpoint. So you see this traffic from if virtual network traffic to 10.2.1.4 is allowed. So let's try it out. Let's see if that rule is holding up. Yes, it is. As you can see, this thing is working, and I can show you this TCP ping. As you can see, it is working as well. So our rule is working. And now you have seen that once we deployed an endpoint, it switched it back to the flag was switched back to disable. We went in, we enabled it, and now we can see we can access the private endpoint. We can apply the policies to the private endpoint. And folks, I'm really sorry, when I'm running the command initially, I was actually hitting the wrong IP address. So that's totally my mistake. Okay, we still have the UDR to check up on. Okay, so let's go to the UDR and let's refresh it. Let's see. Last time that we you saw that the 2.10.2.1.4 was active. So it means we were able to access that. Look at that. This is an invalid route now. So now it is, so just keep in mind, whenever a private endpoint is created, a system route is created by Azure to that private endpoint. Okay. And before this public preview, there was no way to route traffic away from that. That was a big customer ask. With this, as you can see, that route is now invalid. Now, all your traffic from that was going to that subnet, including the traffic destined for that private endpoint, will go where you direct through your UDR. Okay, I know it's, I mean, when you look at the NSG support UDR, what that means, that's what it means. It means that basically now private endpoint will follow the rules that are there with respect to NSG and UDR, which means the traffic that was by default destined for private endpoint, if they lie in that address space which is covered by the UDR, that traffic will go wherever UDR is taking it. It will not go to the private endpoint. Before that, it was going to the private endpoint. And just keep in mind, if you have to set that enable that policy. If you don't enable that policy, I'm saying this again and again because I have come across some issues where, as I said, when you create a private endpoint through UI, this policy has changed. So just make sure that policy is enabled. And the flag is a bit misleading, is has a disable flag, so you have to set it to false to make this feature to work. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Um, so with that, any questions? Okay. Um, so at the moment, I think some customers have asked like, okay, can I apply private endpoint, sorry, NSG directly to a private endpoint? Right now, at the moment, though, if you create a private endpoint, you will see it create a NIC behind the scene, kind of a virtual NIC or representation of a NIC, but you cannot apply private endpoint to that NIC. But with these rules, you can target specific NSGs. So as you can see here, I'm specific private endpoint. I'm targeting a particular private endpoint here. I'm saying allow traffic. So at the moment, traffic cannot go anywhere except 10.2.1.4. That's the only IP address that I'm allowing the traffic. Okay. So just a quick recap. Public preview has been announced for NSG and UDR support for private endpoint. What does that mean? It means that now private endpoint will obey by the same rules that were there for other IP addresses like VM NICs and things like that. If there is a private endpoint on a subnet where a NSG on a subnet where there is a private endpoint, the traffic will follow the rule which is going to the private endpoint. Before it wasn't the case. Given that you have enabled this policy. Same thing with UDR. If you have a UDR with targeting an address space that is that has private IPs endpoints inside it, if you have this policy enabled on that subnet, and I'm talking about the target subnet where private endpoints are living, they will follow the UDR. The traffic will follow the UDR. It will not go by default to that private endpoint. Okay, so just keep that in mind. These are the two things that are available in the public preview. I have the link to the public preview and how to kind of manage different things to the announcement and how to set this policy up. And just don't forget to turn the feature on by kind of running this command. I mean, you can check if this feature is available. For example, I can take this here and I can go into um, here and basically check if the feature is available. Yes, the feature is available. It's registered. It takes 10-15 minutes to register the feature. So that's what it's all about. Any questions? We have 2 more minutes. Okie doke. Hope to see. Thank you for joining once again, and hope to see everybody next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch. And I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Thank you very much.